The massive trading vessel Harmony's Edge drifted through space like a floating city. Its hull stretched for 3 kilometers and housed thousands of beings from across the galaxy. Today would mark a historic moment as the first human delegation prepared to board. Ambassador David Kane adjusted his diplomatic sash one final time before stepping into the airlock. Behind him stood 12 Marines in full combat gear. Their powered exoskeletons hummed quietly while plasma rifles hung ready at their sides. Each soldier wore tactical armor that gleamed under the bright lights. "Remember, everyone," Kane said into his comm unit. "We represent all of humanity today. Show them what we stand for." Sergeant Mike Torres checked his weapon systems automatically. The armor felt natural to him after years of service. He had fought pirates near Saturn's rings and defended colonies on distant worlds. This diplomatic mission seemed peaceful enough, but Marines always stayed ready. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Waiting on the other side stood the strangest collection of beings the humans had ever seen. Their host appeared to be some kind of tall, blue-skinned creature with 4 arms and gentle eyes that seemed to glow softly. "Welcome aboard the Harmony's Edge," the alien said in perfect English through a translation device. "I am Captain Renth of the Vorthok people. We are honored to receive Earth's first official diplomatic envoy." Kane stepped forward and offered a formal bow. "Thank you for this opportunity, Captain Renth. I am Ambassador David Kane, and these are my security escorts." Captain Renth's large eyes studied the armed humans with obvious curiosity. The Vorthok had evolved from plantae creatures on a world with no dangerous predators. Violence was completely foreign to their nature. He found the human equipment impressive, but assumed it must be ceremonial, like the decorative robes his own people wore during important occasions. "Such impressive ceremonial armor," Renth commented politely. "Your weapons are quite elaborate for diplomatic purposes." Dr. Amy Foster, the mission's xenobiologist, stepped up beside Kane. She had studied alien cultures for years and could sense the confusion in their host's voice. "Captain, on Earth we consider proper protection a sign of respect when meeting new friends. It shows we take the meeting seriously." This explanation seemed to satisfy Renth, though he still looked puzzled by the advanced technology the humans carried. He had never seen weapons that appeared so sophisticated, but then again, every species had their own strange customs. "Of course," Renth replied warmly. "Please, allow me to escort you to your quarters. The diplomatic wing has been prepared specially for your visit." As they walked through the ship's wide corridors, other alien passengers stopped to stare. The humans moved with a fluid precision that seemed almost predatory to species that had never developed hunting instincts. Their equipment made soft mechanical sounds that echoed strangely in the peaceful environment. A group of traders from the insect-like Thrixian species whispered nervously among themselves. They had dealt with many different races over the years, but none that carried such obviously dangerous tools. The humans' armor alone looked like it could withstand the vacuum of space. "Are they expecting trouble?" one Thrixian asked another in their clicking language. "Surely not," came the reply. "The consortium space lanes are perfectly safe. No one has attacked a trade vessel in this sector for over a year." Private Tom Liu noticed the stares and whispers, but kept his expression neutral. He had been briefed about alien psychology and understood that humans appeared threatening to more peaceful species. Still, he couldn't help but feel proud of his equipment and training. The diplomatic quarters were spacious and comfortable, with sleeping areas designed to accommodate human physiology. Captain Renth had clearly put considerable effort into making their guests feel welcome. "I hope these accommodations will suffice," Renth said as he showed them around. "We have installed atmosphere processors to match Earth's air composition, and the gravity generators have been adjusted to your homeworld specifications." "This is excellent," Kane replied, genuinely impressed. "Your hospitality exceeds all expectations." After Captain Renth left them to settle in, the Marines began their standard security sweep of the area. They checked for surveillance devices, mapped emergency exits, and established defensive positions out of habit. Dr. Foster watched them work with a mixture of pride and concern. She knew the other species saw humans as aggressive, but she also understood why her people had developed such military traditions. Earth was a dangerous world that had forged its inhabitants into survivors. "Sergeant Torres," she said quietly, "do you think our presence is making the other passengers nervous?" Torres paused in his equipment check and considered the question. "Carefully, Doc. We're doing what we're trained to do. If that makes folks uncomfortable, well, that's not really our problem. Better to be ready for trouble than caught off guard." Throughout the ship, word spread quickly about the new passengers. The human delegation became the subject of countless conversations in dozens of different languages. Some species found them fascinating, others frightening, but none could ignore their presence. In the ship's main recreation area, a group of young Vorthok students debated whether the human weapons were real or merely symbolic. Their teacher, an elderly scholar named Viren, tried to explain that different species had different customs. But why would a peaceful diplomatic mission require such elaborate protection? One student asked. Viren had no good answer. In society, disputes were settled through discussion and compromise. The concept of preparing for violence while seeking friendship seemed contradictory. Meanwhile, in the engineering sections of the ship, Chief Engineer Rax examined security footage of the human boarding. The Thrixian's compound eyes could analyze technical specifications that other species missed. What he saw in the human equipment troubled him deeply. Those weren't ceremonial weapons at all. The power signatures indicated energy weapons capable of punching through starship hulls. The armor incorporated shielding technology that surpassed anything in the consortium's databases. Either the humans were incredibly advanced, or they came from a world so dangerous that such equipment was necessary for survival. As the Harmonies, Edge prepared to jump to hyperspace, Ambassador Kane stood in his quarters reviewing files about their destination. The consortium capital world was supposedly one of the most peaceful places in the galaxy, where dozens of species lived and traded together in harmony. He hoped the Marines wouldn't be needed for their intended purpose. But experience had taught humans to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. In a galaxy where they knew so little about potential threats, caution seemed like wisdom. Outside his window, the stars shifted and stretched as the ship entered hyperspace, carrying Earth's first diplomatic mission toward whatever awaited them in the depths of space. 3 days into their journey toward the consortium capital, alarms began wailing throughout the Harmony's Edge. The massive ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace unexpectedly, throwing passengers against walls and sending loose objects flying through corridors. Sergeant Mike Torres was instantly awake in his bunk when the first tremor hit. Years of military training had taught him to recognize the difference between routine ship operations and genuine emergencies. This felt wrong in every possible way. He activated his comm system and heard frantic chatter from the bridge in the alien language. The translation software struggled to keep up, but certain words came through clearly enough. Surrounded unknown vessels, and prepare for boarding. Torres rolled out of bed and began suiting up in his powered armor. Around him, the other Marines were doing the same without needing orders. They moved with practiced efficiency, checking weapons and equipment while the ship continued to shake. Ambassador Kane appeared in the doorway of the Marines' quarters already dressed in his diplomatic armor. Unlike the soldiers' combat gear, his protection was lighter and designed more for show than battle. "What's our situation, Sergeant?" "Unknown, sir," Torres replied while sealing his helmet. "But we're definitely not alone out here anymore." The ship's intercom crackled to life with Captain Rent's voice, though it sounded strained and worried. "Attention all passengers. We are experiencing a temporary navigation malfunction and request that everyone remain in their quarters until Further notice: Dr. Amy Foster had been studying alien languages in her cabin when the emergency began. She knew enough Warthog to understand that Captain Renth was lying about the nature of their problem. The words he had used on the bridge channels translated more accurately as hostile contact and boarding threat. Private Tom Liu activated his tactical display and immediately spotted multiple small craft on sensors. They surrounded the Harmony's edge in a classic ambush formation. The signatures matched raider vessels from the Outer Rim territories, built for speed and equipped with boarding equipment. Scarix pirates, Liu reported grimly. At least 12 attack craft, probably more, hiding in our sensor shadow. The Scarix hegemony had been terrorizing trade routes for months. They were one of the few aggressive species in the galaxy, descended from apex predators on a harsh desert world. Unlike most consortium races, they understood violence and used it as a tool for profit. Through the ship's hull, the humans could hear the distinctive sound of cutting torches and boarding pods attaching to the outer hull. The pirates weren't interested in destroying the Harmony's edge. They wanted its cargo and passengers intact for ransom purposes. Captain Renth's voice returned to the intercom, now openly panicked. "Human delegation, please respond. We are under attack by hostile forces. Do your ceremonial weapons actually function? We need assistance immediately." Kane activated his comm unit calmly. "Captain Renth, my security team will handle this situation. Please direct all civilian passengers to secure areas and stay out of our way." Throughout the ship, alien passengers huddled in terror as the sounds of boarding grew louder. Most consortium species had never experienced genuine violence. Their worlds were peaceful, their conflicts resolved through negotiation and compromise. The concept of beings who took what they wanted through force was almost incomprehensible. Torres divided his Marines into 3-man teams and positioned them at key choke points throughout the ship. The Harmony's edge had been designed for comfort and trade, not defense. Its wide corridors and open spaces would normally favor attackers, but humans had learned to fight in any environment. "Remember, these are pirates," Torres announced over the comm. "They're here for profit, not glory. Make it too expensive, and they'll withdraw. But don't hesitate to use lethal force if necessary." The first boarding pod breached the hull near the cargo holds. Scarix pirates poured through the opening expecting to encounter terrified civilians and minimal resistance. Instead, they found Corporal Beth Wilson and Private Tom Liu waiting for them with plasma rifles at the ready. The pirates were tall, lizard-like creatures with natural armor plating and vicious claws. They carried energy weapons and wore environmental suits designed for ship-to-ship combat. Under normal circumstances, they would have overwhelmed any defense the peaceful trade vessel could mount. But these weren't normal circumstances. Wilson opened fire with precision shots that punched through Scarix's armor like paper. Her powered exoskeleton allowed her to move faster than the pirates expected, while her tactical computer tracked multiple targets simultaneously. Leo flanked from the opposite side, creating a crossfire that trapped the boarders in a killing zone. The pirates had never encountered humans before. They didn't understand that these beings had evolved on a world where everything tried to kill them. They didn't realize that human military doctrine had been refined through countless wars against their own species and tested against every possible threat. Within minutes, the first boarding party was neutralized. The surviving pirates retreated back to their pod, broadcasting warnings about unexpected resistance to their command ship. Similar scenes played out across the Harmony's edge. As more boarding parties encountered human defenders, the Marines moved through the ship with deadly efficiency, their advanced sensors allowing them to track hostile movement through walls and bulkheads. Ambassador Kane coordinated the defense from the bridge while maintaining diplomatic protocols. Even in combat, he represented humanity's interests and wanted to make the right impression on their alien hosts. Captain Renth Kane said calmly while watching tactical displays show the systematic elimination of boarding parties. I want to assure you that my security team is following appropriate rules of engagement. We're using minimum necessary force to neutralize the threat. Renth stared at the human ambassador in amazement. The gentle Vorthok had never imagined that beings could discuss violence so casually while it was actually happening around them. Through security cameras, he watched human soldiers moving through his ship like efficient predators, eliminating threats with terrifying precision. Chief Engineer Rax monitored the battle from his station and realized that everything he thought he knew about humans was completely wrong. Their equipment wasn't ceremonial at all. It was military technology decades ahead of anything the Consortium possessed. Their tactics showed evidence of conflicts the peaceful species could barely comprehend. The pirates' command ship attempted to provide support by targeting the Harmony's edge with weapons fire, but the massive trade vessels' shields held. Scarex's raiders relied on boarding actions because their light ships couldn't match the firepower of larger vessels. As the last boarding party was eliminated, Sergeant Torres reported to the bridge. His armor showed scorch marks from enemy fire, but he appeared completely uninjured. All hostiles neutralized, sir. No casualties among our people or the civilian passengers. The pirate vessels began withdrawing as word spread that the Harmony's edge was defended by an unknown species with superior military capabilities. The Scareks were predators, but they weren't stupid. When prey proved too dangerous to hunt, they found easier targets elsewhere. Within an hour, the attack was over. The human marines had successfully repelled a force that should have overwhelmed the peaceful trade vessel. Throughout the ship, alien passengers emerged from hiding places to find their human protectors, calmly cleaning weapons and conducting post-battle maintenance. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The boarding pods clamped onto the hull of the Harmony's edge, with metallic thuds that echoed through the corridors. Inside each pod, Scarex's pirates prepared their weapons and checked their environmental suits. They had done this hundreds of times before, and expected another easy victory. Warlord Krex commanded the raiding force from his flagship. The massive Scarex had earned his position through countless successful attacks on Consortium shipping. His scales bore scars from many battles, and his yellow eyes gleamed with anticipation of profit. Begin the assault, Krex ordered through his comm system. Standard procedure. Secure the bridge and engineering. Round up the passengers for ransom processing. Kill anyone who resists. The first boarding party breached the hull near the main cargo hold. 20 heavily armed pirates poured through the opening, expecting to encounter terrified alien traders and perhaps a few security guards with primitive weapons. Instead, they found hell waiting for them. Corporal Beth Wilson had positioned herself on a maintenance catwalk above the cargo hold. Her powered armor allowed her to cling to the ceiling like a spider, while her tactical display tracked every pirate as they entered the compartment. She waited until half the boarding party was inside before opening fire. Her plasma rifle spat controlled bursts of superheated energy. Each shot was precisely aimed at weak points in Scarex's armor that her computer had identified through database analysis. The pirates had never faced an enemy who could analyze their equipment in real time and exploit its vulnerabilities. The first 3 pirates fell before they realized they were under attack. The others scattered for cover behind cargo containers, but Wilson's elevated position gave her clear shots at targets that thought they were protected. Private Tom Liu emerged from concealment on the opposite side of the hold. His approach had been silent, his armor's stealth systems masking his heat signature and movement. The pirates found themselves caught in a crossfire between 2 enemies they couldn't effectively target. Contact. Unknown hostiles in cargo hold. 7. One of the surviving pirates screamed into his comm system. They have advanced weapons and armor. We need backup. But backup wasn't coming. Throughout the ship, Similar scenes were playing out as human Marines encountered boarding parties with devastating efficiency. Near the engineering section, Sergeant Mike Torres crouched in a maintenance shaft above the main corridor. His tactical display showed 12 pirates moving toward the reactor chamber, confident they could secure the ship's power source without resistance. Torres dropped through a ceiling panel directly into the middle of the group. His powered exoskeleton absorbed the impact, while his rifle began firing in a precise pattern that his combat computer had calculated for maximum effectiveness. The Scarix pirates were experienced fighters, but they had never encountered anything like human military doctrine. Torres moved like a predator among prey, his armor allowing him to survive hits that would have killed an unprotected being, while his weapons punched through their defenses with ease. "What are these creatures?" one pirate gasped as he watched his comrades fall around him. "Their equipment is beyond anything in our databases." The answer wouldn't help him. Torres finished eliminating the boarding party and moved on to his next objective. His comm system crackled with reports from other Marines throughout the ship. "Cargo hold 7 secured," Wilson reported. "All hostiles neutralized." "Engineering approaches clear," came another voice. "No enemy contact in Sector 4, Ambassador." Kane monitored the battle from the bridge, while Captain Renth watched in stunned amazement. The gentle Vorthok couldn't comprehend how beings could move through violence with such calm efficiency. "Your security team is quite effective," Renth said, his voice shaking slightly as he watched security cameras show human soldiers systematically eliminating threats throughout his ship. "They're doing their job," Kane replied simply, "protecting innocent lives from those who would do them harm." On his flagship, Warlord Krex listened to increasingly desperate reports from his boarding parties. What should have been a simple raid had turned into a slaughter. His experienced warriors were being eliminated by an unknown species with technology and tactics far beyond anything they had encountered. "Pull back the boarding parties," Krex ordered reluctantly. "Target the ship's engines with our weapons. We'll disable them and call in reinforcements." But the Harmony's edge wasn't defenseless. As the pirate ships moved into firing positions, the trade vessels' shields flared to life. The Scarix light cruisers carried weapons designed for ship-to-ship combat, but they weren't powerful enough to quickly overwhelm a vessel the size of the massive trader. Chief Engineer Rax worked frantically at his console, routing power to defensive systems while monitoring the human soldiers moving through his ship. The insectoid Thrixian's compound eyes could process multiple data streams simultaneously, and what he saw filled him with awe and terror in equal measure. The human equipment wasn't just advanced, it was beyond anything the consortium had ever developed. Their armor incorporated technology that seemed almost magical, while their weapons showed power signatures that suggested they could punch through starship hulls if necessary. Private Tom Liu advanced through a corridor toward another boarding party that had breached the ship near the passenger quarters. His sensors detected heat signatures behind a bulkhead, and his tactical computer suggested an optimal approach route. He activated his armor's wall-climbing function and moved along the ceiling, his magnetic clamps allowing him to traverse any surface. The pirates below had no idea death was stalking them from above when Liu dropped into their midst. The battle was over in seconds. His training had prepared him for three-dimensional combat in any environment, while the pirates were used to fighting on flat surfaces with cover. Throughout the ship, alien passengers huddled in terror as sounds of battle echoed through the corridors. Most had never heard weapons fire or seen violence of any kind. The concept that beings could kill other beings was almost incomprehensible to species that had evolved beyond such primitive behaviors. But as the sounds of fighting grew more distant, they began to realize something remarkable was happening. The frightening human soldiers weren't hunting them, they were protecting them. Dr. Amy Foster had taken shelter in the ship's medical bay along with several injured alien crew members. She watched through a security monitor as Marines moved past the entrance without even glancing inside. They knew exactly where the threats were and ignored everything else. "They're not random killers," she said to a wounded Vorthok engineer. "They're soldiers. There's a difference." The engineer didn't understand the distinction, but he could see that the humans weren't interested in harming non-combatants. Their violence was focused and precise, directed only at those who threatened innocent lives. Warlord Krex realized his raiding force was being systematically destroyed. Of the 60 pirates he had sent aboard the trade vessel, fewer than 20 remained alive, and they were trapped in defensive positions with no hope of completing their mission. "All units withdraw immediately," he ordered. "Return to ships and prepare for retreat." But withdrawing from the Harmony's edge proved more difficult than boarding it had been. The human Marines had identified all the boarding pod locations and positioned themselves to intercept retreating pirates. Sergeant Torres and his team waited at one airlock as surviving Scarix attempted to reach their escape pod. The pirates moved desperately, knowing their only hope of survival lay in reaching their ships. "Surrender, and you'll be treated according to galactic law," Torres announced through his armor's external speakers. The pirates responded with weapons fire, unwilling to trust the mercy of beings they couldn't understand. Torres and his Marines returned fire with devastating accuracy, eliminating the remaining boarders before they could escape. Within 2 hours, the attack was over. Every boarding party had been neutralized, and the surviving pirate ships were retreating at maximum speed. The Harmony's edge had suffered minimal damage, and no civilian passengers had been harmed. As the human Marines began post-battle procedures, cleaning weapons and checking equipment, the alien crew and passengers slowly emerged from hiding. They found their protectors calmly going about their duties as if nothing unusual had happened. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. In the aftermath of the battle, an eerie quiet settled over the Harmony's edge. The massive trade vessel continued its journey through space, but everything aboard had changed forever. The alien passengers, who had cowered in terror just hours earlier, now emerged to find their human protectors, calmly cleaning weapons and conducting equipment maintenance. Chief Engineer Rax approached the cargo hold where the fiercest fighting had occurred. His compound eyes could analyze technical details that other species missed, and what he saw scattered across the deck made his insectoid limbs tremble with recognition. Pieces of Skirik's armor lay melted and twisted where human plasma rifles had struck them. The energy signatures burned into the metal showed power levels that exceeded anything in the consortium's weapons databases. But it wasn't just the raw firepower that impressed Rax. It was the precision with which it had been applied. Every shot had been perfectly placed to exploit weaknesses in enemy armor. The targeting was so accurate that it suggested advanced computer assistance. But Rax's technical scans showed the human weapons possessed processing power equivalent to Starship navigation computers. Corporal Beth Wilson noticed the insectoid engineer studying the battle damage and walked over to him. Her powered armor still hummed softly with residual energy, and scorch marks on the chest plate showed where enemy fire had struck without effect. "Is there a problem with the cargo hold?" Wilson asked politely through her helmet's external speakers. Rax chittered nervously, a sound that translated roughly as amazement mixed with fear. "Your weapons," he managed in heavily accented Standard Galactic. "They are beyond our technology by centuries." "How is this possible?" Wilson considered the question carefully. Military security protocols limited what she could reveal about human technology, but basic information seemed harmless enough. "We've had a lot of practice," she said simply. "Earth isn't the safest place to evolve." Dr. Amy Foster had been treating minor injuries among the crew when she overheard the conversation. As the mission's xenobiologist, she understood the implications of what the aliens were discovering about humanity. "Chief Engineer Rax," Foster said, approaching the pair. "May I explain something about human development?" The Thrixian nodded eagerly, his species prized knowledge above all else. and the opportunity to learn about these remarkable beings was irresistible. Foster activated a portable display unit and showed images of Earth's surface. The aliens aboard the ship had seen peaceful worlds filled with gentle creatures and abundant resources. What they saw now challenged everything they thought they knew about habitable planets. "This is our home world," Foster began. "The gravity is 30% higher than standard consortium norm. The atmosphere contains trace elements that are toxic to most species. The weather patterns include storms that can level cities, and the geological activity regularly reshapes entire continents." Rex studied the images with growing astonishment. Volcanic eruptions, massive hurricanes, earthquakes that split the ground for hundreds of kilometers. It looked more like a hostile research station than a world where intelligent life could develop. "But surely the life forms are peaceful?" Rex asked. Hopefully. Foster switched to images of Earth's wildlife. Lions stalking prey across African plains, great white sharks patrolling ocean waters, massive grizzly bears defending territory, and countless other predators filled the screen. "Everything on Earth evolved to either hunt or be hunted," Foster explained. "Plants developed toxins to poison herbivores. Animals grew claws and fangs in natural armor. Even our ancestors had to fight for survival every single day." Captain Renth had joined the growing crowd of aliens, listening to Foster's explanation. The gentle Vorthok couldn't comprehend a world where violence was necessary for survival. "How did your species develop intelligence in such conditions?" Renth asked. "Surely cooperation would be impossible in an environment of constant conflict." "That's exactly why we became intelligent," Foster replied. "Humans learned that working together made us more effective hunters and better at defending ourselves. We developed tools and weapons and tactics because we needed them to survive." Ambassador Kane approached the group and saw the alien faces filled with wonder and fear. He had expected this conversation would eventually happen, but perhaps not so soon after their first combat encounter. "Dr. Foster is explaining our evolutionary background," Kane said diplomatically. "I hope you understand that humans distinguish between survival and aggression, between defense and conquest." Sergeant Torres had finished his post-battle equipment check and joined the discussion. His armor bore fresh scorch marks from enemy fire, but he seemed completely uninjured and ready for another fight if necessary. "Sir," Torres said to Kane, "the alien crew are asking technical questions about our equipment. What's our security classification on that information?" Kane considered carefully. Military secrets needed protection, but building trust with their hosts required some transparency. "Basic capabilities only, Sergeant. Nothing that would compromise operational security." Torres nodded and turned to address the gathered aliens. "Your engineer is right that our technology is advanced. We've had to develop it because Earth is what we call a death world. Everything there tries to kill you, so you get very good at staying alive." A young Vorthok crew member raised one of his forearms hesitantly. "But why do you need such powerful weapons for space travel? There are no predators between the stars." The question revealed the fundamental difference between human and alien perspectives. Most consortium species had evolved on worlds where cooperation was natural and conflict was rare. They couldn't imagine needing weapons except as tools for specific tasks. "Because predators aren't always four-legged animals," Torres replied. "Some walk on two legs and fly spaceships and attack innocent traders for profit. Today proved that." Private Tom Liu had been quietly listening while maintaining his equipment. Now he spoke up with the direct honesty typical of young soldiers. "The pirates expected you to be helpless," Liu said to the aliens. "They've probably been raiding ships in this sector for months, taking whatever they wanted because no one could stop them. Well, now they know what happens when they try to rob someone who can fight back." The revelation settled over the alien crew like a heavy blanket. They began to understand that humanity's arrival in galactic society represented something entirely new. a species that possessed both the ability and willingness to use violence in defense of others. Chief Engineer Rax pulled up technical specifications on his portable scanner and compared them to the human equipment he could observe. The results were startling. Your armor alone contains more advanced technology than our entire ship, he announced. Adaptive shielding, quantum processors, medical systems that could revolutionize our civilization. How long did it take your species to develop such capabilities? Foster consulted her historical database. Our first powered armor prototypes were developed about 200 years ago for mining operations in dangerous environments. Military applications came later when we realized the same technology could protect soldiers in combat. 200 years, Renth exclaimed. Our species has been spacefaring for over 1,000 years, and we've never needed to develop anything similar. That's because your species never had to fight for survival every day, Kane observed. Violence shapes technology. Necessity drives innovation. Humans became what we are because our world demanded it. As word spread throughout the ship about the humans' true capabilities, the mood among the passengers began to shift. Initial fear gave way to curiosity, then to something approaching awe. These beings who had seemed so primitive and aggressive were actually incredibly advanced. Their weapons and armor incorporated technology centuries beyond anything the peaceful consortium had developed. Their tactical knowledge came from conflicts the gentle species could barely imagine, but most importantly, they had used their terrifying capabilities not for conquest or profit, but to protect innocent lives from those who would do them harm. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their moral choice to use their power in service of those who couldn't protect themselves. 2 days after the pirate attack, the Harmony's Edge approached the consortium capital world of Nexus. The massive planet gleamed like a jewel in space, its surface covered by gleaming cities where dozens of species lived and worked together in peaceful cooperation. For most passengers, arrival at Nexus represented the end of another routine trading voyage. For the humans aboard, it marked the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. Ambassador David Kane stood in his quarters reviewing diplomatic protocols when his door chimed softly. Outside waited Captain Renth, but the gentle demeanor had changed completely since their first meeting, where once he had seemed curious but distant. Now his large eyes held a mixture of respect and something approaching reverence. Ambassador Kane, Renth said formally, I request a private audience before we reach Nexus. There are matters we must discuss. Kane gestured for the alien to enter and activated his room's privacy field. Whatever Renth wanted to discuss, it was clearly sensitive enough to require complete confidentiality. Captain, how can I assist you? Kane asked diplomatically. Renth settled into a chair designed for his four-armed physiology and spoke carefully. My people have been traveling the space lanes for over 1,000 years. In all that time, we have never encountered pirates in this sector because we believed consortium space was completely safe. Kane waited patiently for Renth to continue, sensing there was more to this conversation than a simple status report. The truth is, Renth continued, his voice dropping to almost a whisper, we have been attacked 17 times in the past year. Each time, we surrendered immediately and paid whatever ransom the pirates demanded. We told ourselves it was the cost of doing business in space. The revelation didn't surprise Kane. Peaceful species often became targets for more aggressive neighbors, especially when they lacked the means to defend themselves effectively. What changed your mind about resistance? Kane asked. Renth's eyes seemed to glow brighter with emotion. Watching your people fight. Seeing what happens when prey becomes predator. The pirates who have terrorized us for months fled in panic when they encountered beings who wouldn't submit to intimidation. Kane chose his words carefully. Captain, humans don't enjoy violence. We use it only when necessary to protect ourselves and others. What you saw wasn't conquest, it was defense. I understand that now, Renth replied. But I need to ask something that may offend you. Would humanity consider sharing defensive technology with species like mine? We can offer significant compensation. The question touched on issues that went far beyond Kane's diplomatic authority. Sharing military technology with alien civilizations would require approval from Earth's government and careful consideration of long-term consequences. I'll need to consult with my superiors, Kane said honestly. But I can tell you that humans generally prefer to help those who cannot help themselves. If your people are suffering under pirate attacks, we'll find a way to address the problem. Word of the human combat capabilities had spread throughout the ship faster than official communications could travel. In the crew quarters, aliens who had never imagined needing weapons now discussed defensive tactics with fascination and horror. Dr. Amy Foster found herself surrounded by curious alien passengers, eager to understand human culture and psychology. They asked endless questions about Earth's history, human warfare, and the development of military technology. But surely your species must have periods of peace? Asked a young Thrixian trader named Vex. No civilization could survive constant warfare. Foster considered the question while reviewing human history on her portable display. We do have peace, but it's usually temporary. Even during our most peaceful eras, we maintained military forces because we knew conflict would eventually return. The concept seemed alien to most of her listeners. Their species had evolved beyond warfare centuries ago, settling disputes through negotiation and compromise. The idea of maintaining weapons during peacetime struck them as primitive paranoia. How do you prevent your weapons from being used against innocent people? Asked another passenger, a Vorthok artist named Glenn. Training and discipline, Foster replied. Human military forces spend years learning not just how to fight, but when and why to fight. Soldiers are taught to protect civilians, not harm them. In the ship's medical bay, alien crew members who had been injured during the pirate attack received treatment from both human and alien medical personnel. The experience provided another revelation about human nature that surprised the aliens, even more than their combat abilities. Sergeant Mike Torres had volunteered to help with medical duties, despite having no formal training. The alien medical staff watched in amazement as the same hands that had eliminated pirate boarding parties now gently assisted injured crew members with infinite patience and care. You were prepared to kill, to protect us, observed Dr. Thel, the ship's Vorthok physician. Yet now, you show such compassion for the wounded. How do you reconcile these opposing behaviors? Torres considered the question while helping a young alien engineer who had been hurt when the ship shook during the attack. They're not opposite behaviors, Doc. They're the same behavior applied to different situations. We protect innocent life, whether that means fighting those who threaten it or caring for those who've been harmed. The medical bay had become an impromptu cultural exchange center. Aliens who had initially feared the humans now sought them out for conversation and insight. They discovered that beneath the intimidating armor and weapons lay beings who valued life and pursued peace whenever possible. Private Tom Liu found himself explaining human philosophy to a group of curious passengers. My grandmother used to say that the strongest warriors are those who fight, so others don't have to. We carry weapons, so peaceful people can sleep safely. Chief Engineer Rax had completed his technical analysis of human equipment and compiled a report that would revolutionize consortium understanding of military science. But what impressed him most wasn't the technology itself, it was how humans had chosen to use it. They could have demanded tribute from us, Rax explained to his engineering team. Their weapons could have made us prisoners in our own ship. Instead, they asked for nothing except the chance to protect innocent lives. As the Harmony's Edge entered Nexus orbital traffic control, news of the human intervention had already reached the planet's surface. The consortium government maintained extensive intelligence networks, and reports of a new species with advanced military capabilities triggered immediate high-level meetings. Ambassador Kane received a priority message from the consortium diplomatic corps requesting an immediate meeting upon arrival. Apparently, word of the pirate encounter had reached officials who understood its implications for galactic security. Sergeant Torres, Kane called his security chief to a final briefing. "We're about to become the most famous beings in consortium space. How do you want to handle the attention?" Torres checked his equipment one final time before answering. "Same way we always handle things, sir. Stay ready, stay professional, and protect innocent people from those who would harm them." The ship's passengers had organized an impromptu farewell ceremony for their human protectors. Representatives from every species aboard gathered in the main recreation area to express their gratitude and offer gifts. Captain Renth spoke for the group with formal dignity. "Ambassador Kane, when we first met, we thought your people were primitive warriors who carried weapons out of ignorance. We now understand that you are advanced beings who carry weapons out of wisdom." Kane accepted a ceremonial crystal from each species represented on the ship, tokens of friendship and respect that would be treasured on Earth as symbols of humanity's first successful diplomatic mission. "We came here seeking friendship and understanding," Kane replied. "We leave with both, and with the knowledge that there are good people throughout the galaxy worth protecting." As the Harmony's Edge docked at Nexus Station, crowds of curious aliens gathered to catch their first glimpse of the remarkable new species that had joined galactic civilization. Security forces stood ready in case the humans proved as dangerous as initial reports suggested. But the beings who emerged from the airlocks bore no resemblance to the savage warriors some had feared. They moved with confidence and discipline, their advanced equipment marking them as a highly sophisticated civilization. More importantly, they showed respect and courtesy to everyone they encountered. Within hours of their arrival, requests began pouring in from across the consortium. Species that had suffered under pirate attacks wanted to meet these incredible defenders. Governments sought treaties and trade agreements with Earth. Scientists begged for the opportunity to study human technology and tactics. The human delegation established temporary headquarters in the consortium diplomatic quarter, while Kane prepared for formal negotiations. Outside, crowds of aliens gathered just to observe beings who had proven that the galaxy's predators were not invincible. Dr. Foster set up cultural exchange programs that would help aliens understand human society beyond their military capabilities. She wanted the galaxy to know that humans were more than just warriors. They were artists and scientists and philosophers who happened to be very good at protecting what they valued. Sergeant Torres and his Marines maintained security protocols while adapting to their new role as galactic celebrities. Everywhere they went, aliens stared in wonder at beings who had willingly risked their lives to protect strangers. As night fell over Nexus, Kane stood in his quarters, looking out at the sprawling alien city. Tomorrow would bring formal diplomatic sessions and the beginning of Earth's integration into galactic society. But tonight, he reflected on what they had accomplished. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy as unknowns carrying weapons that frightened peaceful species. They were leaving as protectors who had proven that strength could be used in service of justice rather than conquest. The pirates who had terrorized consortium shipping lanes now knew that the galaxy contained beings who would fight back. More importantly, innocent traders and travelers knew they were no longer defenseless against predators. Word spread across the galaxy through the consortium communication networks. A new species had emerged from the Outer Rim territories, one that combined advanced technology with moral purpose. They called themselves humans, and they had changed everything. In the depths of space, pirate fleets that had operated with impunity for years now faced a new reality. Their victims might be protected by beings who understood warfare better than any species in the galaxy. The age of easy prey was ending, and in peaceful worlds throughout consortium space, Beings who had never imagined needing protection began to sleep more soundly, knowing that somewhere among the stars, humans stood ready to defend those who could not defend themselves. The galaxy would never be the same.